My name is Ashley, and at 33, what was supposed to be a simple family vacation turned into a nightmare I still can't fully process. One moment we were laughing under the sun, and the next, my 14-year-old daughter collapsed in front of everyone, gasping for air, trembling, her face drained of color. I can still hear the echo of my own voice screaming for help. We rushed her to the hospital, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. While I sat by her side praying she'd wake up, my phone buzzed. I thought it was my family checking in. It wasn't. It was a photo of them. My parents, my sister, her husband, and their kids, lounging by the pool with cocktails in hand. The caption read, "Finally having peace without the pathetic drama queen." They didn't mean me. They meant my daughter, my baby, lying in a hospital bed with IVs in her arms, fighting through tears and pain. And I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't send a single message back. Instead, I went silent, because I realized that silence would hurt them far more than words ever could. When they came home later, feeling smug and self-satisfied, they found something waiting for them on their kitchen table. Something that made them finally understand what peace really felt like. But before I tell you what I did, you need to understand why. You need to understand the kind of family that could sip cocktails while a child suffered in a hospital. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, you'll get this. It sounds like a soap opera setup, right? I wish it were. But for me, it was just another Tuesday in my family. Every year, we had these so-called family trips. My parents called them tradition. I called them torture with luggage. But my daughter, she looked forward to them. She'd been begging to go this year. A new destination, beaches, palm trees, the works. She'd counted down the days like it was Christmas. And because she was so excited, I said yes, even though my gut screamed not to. That's the curse of being a single mom. You walk into the lion's den smiling if it means your kid gets one happy memory. So off we went. Me, my daughter, my parents, my sister, her husband, and their 2 little angels. On paper, we looked like a Hallmark postcard. In reality, it was more like the Hunger Games, Family Edition. My parents always said they loved both their daughters equally, but we all knew that was a lie with legs. They had a favorite, my sister, and I was the family's permanent scapegoat. They played favorites like it was a family sport. The first morning over breakfast, my daughter whispered that her stomach hurt. She didn't make a scene. She never does. She's quiet, gentle, the kind of kid who apologizes when someone else bumps into her. Before I could even respond, my mother swooped in with her signature sneer. "Oh, please," she sighed. "Don't start with the drama already. We just got here. My sister didn't miss a beat. She's probably just trying to get out of walking," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her kids, always eager to earn her approval, started chanting Drama Queen like it was some family anthem. I bit my tongue. I wanted to tell them to shut up, to show a little compassion, but I didn't, because I knew how that would go. Every time I stood up for myself or for my daughter, I was branded overly emotional or playing the victim. So I stayed quiet, told myself it was probably just a stomach bug. I wanted to believe it wasn't serious. I wanted peace. By noon, she was getting worse. Her steps slowed, her face turned gray. "Can we sit down for a bit?" she asked softly. My father glared. "Don't milk it," he snapped. "You've always been like this, Ashley. Now you've passed it on." My mother muttered something about attention seekers under her breath, and my sister rolled her eyes like she was allergic to empathy. And through it all, my daughter tried to smile, tried to act fine. She didn't want to be their punchline again. Watching her do that, watching her shrink herself to avoid their cruelty, broke something in me. By dinner, she was barely touching her food. Her eyes were glassy, her lips pale. She sat there while the rest of them laughed, ate, and made jokes I couldn't stand to hear. My sister leaned close to her husband, whispered something, and both of them laughed. Their kids joined in. I asked what was funny. They shrugged. Nothing. Then it happened. She stood up, took one step, and collapsed. It was like everything froze. The laughter stopped. Plates clinked. And then came the words I will never forget. My mother sighed and said, Oh, for heaven's sake. Like it was an inconvenience. Like my child's collapse was a tantrum. That's when I snapped. I shoved back my chair, ran to my daughter, and screamed for help. Everything after that was chaos. Flashing lights, hospital corridors, forms to sign, medical jargon I could barely comprehend. I held her hand as she cried, telling her she'd be okay even when I didn't believe it myself. Hours passed. The doctors worked. I texted my family, what to nothing. Not a single call, not even a how is she. When the room finally quieted, I checked my phone again. And there it was, that photo. My family smiling, lounging by the pool. My mother's caption glowed under their smug faces. Finally having peace without the pathetic drama queen. They didn't just mock me. They mocked my child. My innocent, terrified little girl. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stared at the screen until my hands went numb. And then something inside me shifted. All the years of ridicule, the endless comparisons to my perfect sister, the times I'd been told I was too sensitive, too weak, too dramatic. It all burned away. What was left wasn't anger. It was clarity. This was the last time they would ever hurt me, or her. Because if you really want to know how someone can toast cocktails while their granddaughter lies in a hospital bed, you have to go back to the beginning. I didn't stumble into a toxic family. I was born into one. From the moment I came into this world, I was the lesser one. My sister, 2 years older, flawless in their eyes, could do no wrong. She was the golden child, the family's shining example. I was the shadow that reminded them perfection wasn't hereditary. My mother's voice always tightened when she spoke to me, like saying my name left a bad taste. My father sighed every time I failed to meet their impossible standards. Teachers compared me to my sister, and my parents just nodded approvingly like, exactly. Why can't you be more like her? When I was little, I thought love was something you could earn if you just tried hard enough. I studied harder, smiled more, straightened my hair like my sister, even practiced her laugh in the mirror. I thought maybe if I became a copy of her, they'd finally look at me the same way. But no matter what I did, I was never enough. By the time I was a teenager, I had learned my role. I was the disappointment. The one to blame. The one they could mock to feel superior. And when I got pregnant young, without a husband, without a plan, I became the family embarrassment. My mother's face turned cold. My father muttered, "Figures," and my sister smirked. At least now you've got a purpose. I thought having my daughter would make them see me differently. That maybe, just maybe, they'd soften. But instead, they used her to shame me more. They said she'd grow up just like me, that she'd be my punishment. But they were wrong. She became my redemption. The irony, the house we lived in, the only place I ever felt safe, didn't belong to my parents. It belonged to my grandmother. She was the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a mistake. She loved my daughter fiercely, saw her as something precious. And when she passed away, she left the house. Not to my parents, not to my sister, but to my daughter. Legally, it was in trust. I was just the guardian. That single act of love was my grandmother's final gift, her silent rebellion against the cruelty she'd watched all her life. My parents were furious. They called it betrayal. My sister called it unnatural. My father said my grandmother had been confused, but I knew the truth. She saw them for who they really were. Selfish, cruel, and unworthy of trust. And that's when everything began to change. Because while they were busy mocking me, they didn't realize they'd already lost their power. The house, the control, the image. Everything they valued, gone. They just didn't know it yet. And that's why, when they came home from that vacation, laughing and sunburned, they found something waiting on their kitchen table. Something that made them finally realize the cost of their cruelty. And this time, I didn't need to shout. My silence did the screaming for me. When you've spent your whole life being told you're worthless, you don't wake up the next morning suddenly full of power. I didn't kick them out. I didn't throw the deed in their faces. I did what I'd always done. I kept my head down. I told myself, it's just a formality. It's still their house. Don't rock the boat. So we stayed. My parents continued to treat it as theirs. They filled the rooms with their rules, their voices, their judgment. I raised my daughter in the same house where I'd been raised as a disappointment, hoping maybe things would be different this time. They weren't. Every time my mother scolded me, every time my father sighed, every time my sister visited with her perfect life and her perfect kids, it was the same chorus. Failure, failure, failure. Only now I had someone watching me absorb it. My daughter. That was the part that kept me up at night. Not my parents' cruelty. I was used to that. But the thought that she might grow up thinking this treatment was normal, that she'd believe the way I once believed that she was a burden. Endief. You've ever wondered why I snapped when I saw that pool selfie, when I saw them mocking her while she was in the hospital? This is why. Because it wasn't just a caption. It was a lifetime of cruelty now directed at the only person who ever made me feel like I mattered. When the doctor finally came in, I thought my chest might cave in. Appendicitis, he said. Flat as a hammer on steel, like he was telling me the time. Good news, it hadn't burst yet. Bad news, they had to operate immediately. And the worst part, I was alone in that room, alone with my fear, alone with the silence from the people who should have been there. I wanted to text them. Just one line. She needs surgery. She could have died. But I stopped myself because I already knew how it would play out. At best, my sister would send an eye roll in text form. At worst, they'd laugh about drama queen again, so I didn't call. And they didn't either, not once. My daughter was being prepped for surgery, and they were still splashing in that damn pool. The operation went smoothly. The surgeon told me she'd recover fine, and I nearly collapsed myself. I sat there by her bed afterward, watching her breathe under the thin hospital blanket, thinking, this is what it means to actually show up for someone. And in the same breath, I thought, my parents never have. Not for me, not for her. They'd clink cocktails while I panicked in this chair. That's when it hit me. I had leverage, real legal leverage. The trust, the house, the one card my grandmother had pressed into my hand when she died, and I'd been too scared, too conditioned to ever play it. Not anymore. While my daughter slept, I called a lawyer. My voice was steady, too steady maybe. He took down the details, and by the time we left the hospital a few days later, the papers were ready. Formal notice, 30 days. I didn't sneak it into a drawer. I didn't send it through the post like a bill. No, I put it right on the kitchen table, dead center. Let it sit there like a live wire. And then I waited. The holiday stretched another week. Every day they posted more. Beaches, dinners, matching grins, family time. Every caption felt like it was aimed at me, either. I stayed silent. For once, the silence was mine. And then the front door opened. Suitcases dragged across the floor. Laughter echoed. My parents walked in first, tan and smug, with my sister right behind them, her husband and kids trailing along. They froze when they saw me sitting at the table, the letter in front of me. The room went still. My mother reached for it first, scanned the lines, and went red. My father's jaw clenched like stone. My sister's face twisted like she'd swallowed something bitter. Then the screaming began. "This is our house," my mother shouted, waving the paper. She was confused when she wrote that will. My father barked. You know she was old. She didn't know what she was doing. You can't be serious. My sister snapped, her voice climbing. This is family. You don't kick family out. The cousins just stared wide-eyed like they'd stumbled into a play they didn't audition for. I didn't move. My friend sat beside me, sipping tea slowly, watching the circus unfold. My mother slammed the letter down again. Ungrateful, she spat. After everything we've done for you, after raising you, you owe us this. I looked at her calm as ice. No, I don't. It's my daughter's house. You have 1 month? You'd think I had set the place on fire. My father turned purple. My sister started ranting about culture, tradition, respect. My mother wailed about betrayal. The cousins whispered drama queen again as if that word could undo ink on paper. I stayed steady. He didn't shout. I didn't budge. You have 1 month, I repeated. They threw everything at me. Pleading, threats, guilt trips. My sister leaned across the table, furious. Just take it back. Tear it up. You can't really mean this. If you care so much, I said, let them live with you. And that shut her up cold. It went on for hours. Accusations, slammed doors, red faces, tears that looked rehearsed. My friend never left my side, not once. At one point, my father leaned in, his voice low and venomous. You'll regret this. You're still the same failure you've always been. I smiled, tired and sharp. Maybe. But I'm the failure who just gave you 30 days to find a new place to live. That shut him down too. By the end of the night, the noise had burned itself out. My parents retreated to their room, muttering. My sister gathered up her kids and left fuming. I went upstairs, tucked my daughter into her bed, kissed her forehead. She stirred, murmured my name, and I felt the weight shift. For the first time in years, the power was mine. They thought they owned this house. They thought they owned me, but the notice was on the table. The clock was ticking, and there was no undoing it. And I knew one thing as I turned out the light. They weren't going to take this quietly. Living with my parents after handing them an eviction notice was like sleeping, with snakes in the bed and pretending you couldn't hear them. The letter was on the table. The clock was ticking. But they still sat at the kitchen every morning, rattling mugs and slamming drawers as if noise could change the law. The atmosphere was poisonous. My father reading the paper with exaggerated sighs. My mother whispering ungrateful, just loud enough for me to hear. The air in that house had weight to it, pressing down on me and my daughter until even breathing felt like defiance. And my daughter, still sore from surgery, had to walk past their stairs on her way to the bathroom. 14 years old and recovering from appendicitis. But they looked at her like she'd ruined their lives. Then came the posts. I didn't see them first. My cousin sent me screenshots. My parents smiling sadly beside stage boxes by the door. Caption, thrown out by our own daughter. Betrayed. Made homeless. Homeless. They were sitting in my kitchen when that went live. More posts followed. My father perched on the stairs looking tragic. My mother clutching a photo album like a widow in a soap opera. The captions wrote themselves. We gave her everything. She gave us nothing. And the comments rolled in. Aunts, uncles, extended family all piling on. How could she? Shameful. Doesn't she know what family means? Family, right? The same family that had called my kid a drama queen while she writhed in pain. Didn't answer, not yet. Then my sister came. She didn't storm in this time. She knocked, but the look on her face was just as sharp. She sat down across from like she was a lawyer. And I was on trial. You can't really mean this, she said. You've made your point. Stop before it destroys everything. I stirred my tea. Everything's already destroyed. You're tearing the family apart. I laughed, dry, sharp. No, I'm finally refusing to let them tear me apart. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, she said. You'll regret this, probably, I said. But I'll regret staying a lot more. She left in a storm of perfume and indignation. And for once, I didn't feel small when the door slammed. Meanwhile, the post kept multiplying. My parents had turned the house into a stage, performing victimhood for anyone who would watch. And it was working, at least until I decided to speak. I don't post much. I don't like it, but silence has its limits. I took their poolside selfie, the one where they toasted finally having peace without the pathetic drama queen, and I set it next to their homeless victim's photo. Then I wrote, during this family holiday, my 14-year-old daughter collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. She was diagnosed with appendicitis. It could have been life-threatening. Not once did my parents or sister ask how she was. Not once did they visit. Instead, they posted this photo mocking her as a drama queen. This house belongs to my daughter through my grandmother's will. I am her guardian. I will not allow people who laughed at her pain to keep living under her roof. That's the truth. And I hit post. The effect was immediate. The buzzing in my phone stopped. The comments dried up. The relatives who'd been shouting the loudest suddenly had nothing to say. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was clean. My parents didn't post again. The days dragged on, tense and bitter, but quieter. Cupboards still slammed, mutters still floated. But the performance was over. They knew it. By the end of the 30 days, they packed their things and left. No speeches, no posts. Just boxes in a car and a door that closed behind them. I walked through the house after they were gone. The rooms felt strange without their noise, like the walls were exhaling for the first time. Upstairs, my daughter was stretched out on her bed, sketchbook in her lap. She looked up when I opened the door. Are they really gone? She asked. Yeah, I said. They're gone. She smiled, tired, but genuine. It feels different already. It did. For the first time, the house wasn't theirs. It wasn't even mine. It was hers, and it was finally free. After they moved out, they didn't exactly land on their feet. They hauled their boxes over to my sister's place, crammed themselves in with her, her husband, and my daughter's cousins. From what I've heard, it was chaos from day one. Too many people, not enough space, and her husband wasn't thrilled about suddenly inheriting his in-laws. It didn't take long before the cracks showed. Arguments, slammed doors, snide comments. A few months later, my sister finally had enough and kicked them out too. And with that, whatever was left of their relationship went down the drain. Now, word is they're renting some tiny cheap place on the far edge of town, a far cry from the house they once thought was theirs. And me, with them gone, life changed overnight. The house is peaceful. My daughter has space to heal, to laugh, to just be a teenager without being mocked for it. I even started renting out one of the spare rooms, which meant I could cut back my hours at work and actually spend evenings with her. For the first time in years, we're not just surviving, we're living. I haven't spoken to the rest of them, and I don't plan to. I just hear the updates through relatives and the occasional social media post. So tell me, do you think I went too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe.